In the past, the mausoleum has been used in films like To the Devil a Daughter, made in 1976, and A Clockwork Orange, made in 1971. A Clockwork Orange was written and directed by Stanley Kubrick, and stars Malcolm McDowell, as the victim of a government mind control program.
I read all about the scourging and the crowning with thorns, and I could vidi myself helping in and even taking charge of the toll-chocking and the nailing in, being dressed in the height of Roman fashion.
To the Devil a Daughter, was written by Dennis Wheatley, and stars Christopher Lee as the head of a satanic cult, and John Verney as the occult novelist who defeats him.
Catherine, wake up.
Mr. Verney.
Mr. Rayner.
When this ceremony has been performed, I shall destroy you, John Verney. You are meddling in things beyond your knowledge.
I read the Book of Astaroth. You just butchered Astaroth. The demons hate you, Rayner. They're waiting for you.
The circle of blood protects me, as you know, if you have read the book. Very soon, Astaroth will live on in this child, and all will be well.
No, I'm taking her.
Then why don't you come into the circle and take her?
You really think this circle will protect you, don't you? It won't.
But it will, because this circle stands upon a hill of flint, and flint is the sacred stone of Astaroth.
But this stone of Astaroth has the blood of your disciple on it. Now the demons will protect me.
Wheatley is better known for his book, The Devil Rides Out, which was also turned into a film starring Christopher Lee. Here, Lee plays an occultist who rescues his friend from a satanic cult. The cult leader was played by Charles Gray, who appeared in the 1971 James Bond film, Diamonds Are Forever, as the villain, Ernst Stavro Blofeld, and the intelligence officer Deco Henderson, in the 1967 James Bond film, You Only Live Twice. Wheatley had fought in World War I, and was involved with MI5 during the 1930s. In 1941, he was employed as a deception planner with MI5, and probably with MI6, writing anti-German and anti-Russian occult spy fiction. Wheatley attended occult ceremonies performed by Aleister Crowley, as part of the research for his writings. Crowley had worked for MI6 during World War I, where he played a role in the sinking of the Lusitania, and for MI5 prior to World War II, where he spied on Germans with occult interests. During World War II, Christopher Lee was an intelligence officer in the Royal Air Force, was involved with the Special Air Service, and towards the end of the war, would conduct espionage, sabotage, and reconnaissance operations in occupied Europe, for the Special Operations Executive.
Some truth, 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of Satan, the worship of dark forces, whether it's voodoo, juju, whether it's something practiced in the Western world or the Eastern world, whether it's easily defined or not easily defined, the order of the left-hand path, the following of this, the following of that. It is basically the worship of the force of evil as embodied by Satan, Lucifer, the princes of darkness and their legions and so on. In a very simple sense, of course, it goes much more deeply than that. It is a fact. It is a desperately dangerous fact. It does exist. It exists around us today. Satanic ceremonies will be happening in Britain tonight. Very definitely. Ask any priest, ask any member of the forces of law and order, and they will tell you that Satanism as such, it's there, and it has been for thousands of years. Man has worshipped the devil longer than he has worshipped perhaps an established religious figure.
Christopher Lee is a step-cousin of the author Ian Fleming, and served alongside him in World War II. Fleming was an officer in the Navy's Intelligence Department during World War II, and was the British Navy's liaison officer with MI6. It was Fleming who created the fictitious MI6 operative James Bond, and Bond was partly inspired by Wheatley's fictitious character, secret agent Gregory Sallust. The Mausoleum seems to be a magnet for the creative output of occult-centered former military intelligence operatives. It's another synchronicity that points to Dashwood's links to the occult and government intelligence operations. Michael Howard from NewDawnMagazine.com confirms this with the following statement.
Gathering intelligence is carried out under a cloak of secrecy, and occultists are adept at keeping their activities concealed from sight. Like secret agents, they also use codes, symbols, and cryptograms to hide information from outsiders. Occultists and intelligence officers are similar in many ways, as both inhabit a shadowy underworld of secrets, deception, and disinformation. It is therefore not unusual that often these two professions have shared the same members.
Is the occult a form of mind control? Or alternatively, is the occult being used as a tool of mind control? Why do Dennis Wheatley's stories portray the supernatural in such a negative light? Are we being clockwork oranged into a false view of reality? And if so, why? One wonders how, and why, such accomplished men like Dennis Wheatley have ended up in a position where they can entertain the public with their occult knowledge. Incidentally, Sir Francis Dashwood, the 11th Baronet, married the actress Marla Landy in 1977, a year after the death of his first wife, Victoria. Landy is pictured here, top row, second left, with the Dashwood family in the 1980s. In 1959, Landy had co-starred with Christopher Lee in The Hound of the Baskervilles. As mentioned previously, the simulated aeroplane crash on West Wickham Hill paints a 911, and its inversion, a 116, onto the location, as if saying, an act of conspiracy has occurred at this site. The nature of the conspiratorial act is unclear, but given the scale of the 9/11 attacks in New York, we should consider that, whatever it was, it probably started a war, claimed a lot of lives, and changed the course of history. These synchronistic connections are generalizations only. For example, the simulated aeroplane crash on West Wickham Hill could be interpreted as meaning, an act of conspiracy has occurred at this site, just as equally as, an act of conspiracy was hatched at this site. The latter infers that the Hellfire Caves were used to plan the act of conspiracy that would have been executed at a different time and location. Similarly, we should understand that aeroplanes needn't have been involved in said act of conspiracy. They are just modern symbolic parlance for act of conspiracy, or initiation of war. Previously, David Icke stated that
Sir Francis Dashwood, and American independence hero Benjamin Franklin, who was actually a covert agent for the British Crown all along. The Crown wanted the Americans to have fake independence, so they could replace overt control with the far more effective covert control.
the American Revolutionary War raged between 1775 and 1783 and claimed thousands of lives. Benjamin Franklin signed the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and is considered one of the founding fathers of the United States. Since that time, the United States of America has become one of the most powerful nations on the planet, and by the end of the 20th century, the dollar had become the world's most dominant reserve currency. Franklin's face even features on the present-day $100 bill. Could Dashwood and Franklin have conspired inside the caves to instigate the American Revolutionary War? The author thinks this is possible, and that it could be the act of conspiracy being signaled through the mock airplane crash.